23 of Yo Biggest Questions, mostly about Cybertruck. I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla weekend. So a while back, I took some questions from you guys from the comments, and they went great, so I'm back to do it again. Let's get started. Timestamps for all the questions in the description and on the slider there. So let's just get into it. When do you project production to start? At Giga Texas. Q4, late Q3, probably Q4, at least for the Model Y. Cybertruck coming a bit later. E.T., among many other very colorful comments, said, "It's channels like this that ruins being a car fan. Enough with the freaking Tesla wars. You are all like the damn GOP, a cult." So I'm going to ignore the GOP part. It's not really relevant. Let's keep politics out of this, except as they pertain to, actual EV adoption. Here's the thing. A cult requires faith without evidence. And when looking at different electric vehicles, I look at evidence. Looking at Sandy Munro's teardown says that Ford is in second place, but they are distantly in second. The Supercharger network, it's second to none. It's not even close. And that's not in terms of specs. That's in terms of real-world application. So I've studied this. A lot of people who watch these videos have studied this. It is, we have reason to believe that we're on the right track here. Need your Q2 earnings report, prediction, and stock target. Okay, so I don't do stock targets because the market is irrational. It's always irrational. I would have thought it would have been up, at least above where it is now, maybe even up from its all-time high in January. There's been nothing but good news since January, really, and yet the stock has taken quite a pullback from its all-time highs. Bit weird to me, but whatever. The earnings report, I will try and get that out. By the time this comes out, earnings may have already happened. I'm not sure. I'm recording this in advance because I'm out of town on a road trip covering Tesla stuff, hopefully. An interesting question will be, will they sell more or less of the Ford Lightning than the Mach-E? That's their choice. On both counts. They can sell as many as they choose to. They just have to make them. And any battery you put in one is a battery you can't put in the other. And more specifically, any battery you put in the Lightning is two you can't put in Mach-E's, because that thing it's going to have a very large battery pack. So it's definitely going to not make a big dent in the F-150 sales. But the real problem is they're not going to be likely to steal sales from other brands. They're going to be cannibalizing their high-margin internal combustion truck with their low-margin EV. That's dangerous. That's difficult. That's painful. That's how you get yourself in trouble. But that's what they're doing. So if it will be complete, if Giga Texas will be complete by the 14th of December, is that when production will start? Or will that happen earlier, even if it isn't complete? So I've seen conflicting comments on this, and I've had trouble finding the relevant codes in Texas. One viewer said, you can't get a certificate of occupancy until the entire structure is complete. Another said that that's not true, that if there are fire breaks with 2-hour firewalls, you can get a certificate of occupancy for that section. Now, if that's the case, they could be a month or two from getting a certificate of occupancy for the portions of the factory that make the Model Y, and they could begin production kinda whenever. The paint shop should be just about done. We know the casting cathedral is operational, and the stamping area, that's old technology, and it was the first building completed, walled in anyway. So I think it's going to happen pretty quick. The only question is, can you get a certificate of occupancy on an incomplete building? And the answer is, I don't know. I've had conflicting reports. Meanwhile, Giga Berlin is still creeping along. Who will win the race? Well, that's a tricky one, isn't it? I think it's going to come down to the batteries. If Giga Berlin is getting their 4680s from Cato Road or Giga Nevada or some other Panasonic facility or LG, those batteries could just as well go to Texas. So I think it's neck and neck. Boy, I think it's neck and neck. I do not have an answer to who will win that race. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Why is Giga Shanghai bigger floor square footage than Giga Texas, Giga Nevada, Giga New York, Giga Berlin, and Fremont combined? Oh, easy. It isn't. I don't know what you're talking about. That is pretty weird. That's a pretty weird claim. It is not. It's probably not bigger than... It's probably bigger than Giga Nevada and definitely bigger than Giga New York. But Berlin and Texas are ginormous, and Fremont similarly a ginormous. I bet there will be a boring tunnel between the office building and Giga Factory. I bet there won't. Boring tunnels are great when you need the ability to move things in a place where there aren't roads. There's a road. There's plenty of access between the east and west. And a tunnel would be expensive, and you couldn't use it to move anything but people. Cargo does not go through boring tunnels. The diameter is too small. You can't fit a shipping container. It just doesn't work. And also it could be seen as a conflict of interest. So if one is paying the other, if Tesla is paying Elon's little boring company, I think that could be a problem. In regards to Giga Texas being bigger than 25 IKEAs, hopefully Tesla doesn't do it in a flat pack. To which I said, of course, the best flat pack is no flat pack. Need a non-grid way of supercharging fast? Soon, grids worldwide will be maxed out, both micro and macro grids. No, they won't. No, they won't. You're hearing headlines about how grids are maxed out, but they're not. They're near capacity in a few places on a few days out of a few years. Most of the time, there's no problem at all. Those air conditioning units that were running in New York were running during the day. Most people charge at night. So, yeah, we are nowhere close to running out of capacity. The system is set up to run even when there's unusual demand. And with time of use pricing, most owners would choose to charge when it's cheap. Pat K, hello Pat, asked, I think you don't need to have the wall panels on most areas left by the date 17 weeks out. So on the Giga Texas Math Tracker, when I close off a wall, it starts a 17-week march towards completion. After 17 weeks, I say it's done. And he's saying, yeah, but so much of the factory is going to be completed, but not put into use right away. It's just closed off space. It doesn't take 17 weeks to put in lights and no equipment. And that's fair. But this is kind of where I hope to be off in a good way. My projections right now are for mid-December completion. In the next few weeks, we may see that slip out to late December, early January. And then I hope we'll see a surprise of production early that will validate my overall assumptions throughout the process. So yeah, I believe there's absolute merit in that statement. What I look at is road blacktop going down and parking lots paved. I don't, because those happen very quickly. This week we saw, or I guess last week now, we saw a lot of pavement go in. We saw some roads go in. We saw loading docks get concrete. It moves very quickly, and it doesn't slow down work on the interior. It's not like it's the same crew has to stop working on something else that's critical. There's no asphalt inside the building. It's different people. Here's hoping Elon gives you a personal tour when it's done. Oh man, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. I'm going to say the odds are real low. I hope at least the drone pilots get an invitation to see it when it's open. And I'd like to be one of their plus ones. But we'll see how that works out. JJE says, this man just measured things in IKEAs. The meme is true for Americans, isn't it? Anything except the metric system. Yeah, I mean, I have measured it in, meters before and kilometers and football fields and hectares and acres and Walmarts. I think I measured it in Walmarts once. I'll measure it in anything. Because, it's exciting. It's exciting. Are there support buildings calculated in this calculation? What about traffic areas? So, no, none of those are counted because we don't know how many support buildings there will be. We assume there's going to be 2 more buildings, but we haven't seen the blueprints, the footprint, the site plan. We haven't seen any of it. We don't know how tall it'll be or how big it'll be. We can make some educated guesses, but we don't really know anything. And as for the traffic areas, just like with the roads and all the pavement, it just kind of happens. And it can certainly be done during the 17 weeks from the time the last wall panel goes up to the time the factory is complete. Do you expect the South Central Corridor to be fully built? I was wondering whether they would only go south as far as the northernmost end of the stamping building, since this is the wall to the west side with the outer walls rather than just a fire break. It's got those green walls and it doesn't have, the green walls are generally considered interior walls. Do I think it'll go all the way? I think it will. I think it absolutely will. But we'll see. We'll see. What percent does the formula put Giga Texas at if you change it to say the middle corridor is all complete? Just wondering. I can do that. Okay. So looking at it, what does that do? It takes us from 71 to 73% done. So not a huge change. It only really changes it by a couple percent. Interesting. By about 3% is what it changes it. Interesting. I would have thought it would have been a bigger change than that, but here we are. Burning question. Brian, have we ever had a definitive statement from an authoritative source that the massive factory building currently under construction in Austin will host anything other than the Model Y? Isn't it more accurate that Tesla has said the Cybertruck will be built in Austin, maybe not in that building? So, I guess no, but the factory is kind of too large to just be a Model Y factory. It's been assumed that the 3 buildings would support Model Y, Cybertruck, and something else before they were merged into one building. So, no, we don't know that for sure, but I don't see why they wouldn't make it a priority. There's a incredible market waiting for the Cybertruck. I'm surprised they're doing the Model Y first. I would have thought the Cybertruck would come first. I think they're waiting on the 8,000-ton presses to get that in place so they can actually do it all at once. In regards to Starship, when I said it's a very difficult task to land it on Mars, was there any other questions that exceeded your expectations? Better put, was there anything else you believed to be impossible to accomplish that got done by Elon and associates? Certainly. Building the Model S, a ground-up platform, as an American startup was impossible. It hadn't been done in generations successfully, and they did it. Making an EV that can beat legacy companies? Impossible. They did it. Landing and reusing orbital class rockets? Impossible. They did it. Putting thousands of satellites up at a price so cheap that people can afford high-speed internet all over the place and it works better than anything? impossible, they did it. But landing on Mars is a whole different matter. Is Giga Texas main building about 4 times bigger than the current Berlin main building? So there's been some talk about this lately on Twitter, saying that Berlin might actually be bigger than Texas in terms of footprint. But I don't believe it is. I think that includes all the additional buildings on site. I don't believe that includes just the main building. More importantly, I don't think that Texas it's definitely not 4 times bigger than Berlin. I've got a video on that. If you look at the 6-month overview side-by-side video, I show satellite maps to scale. You can decide for yourself how big everything is. If Starship can land here on Earth, then it can land on Mars. There's a lot of things we can do on Earth that we can't do on Mars, or that we haven't done on Mars, or that we've had an incredibly difficult time doing on Mars. Even landing stuff on the moon is vastly easier than doing it on Mars. It is generational. It is leaps and bounds. It is orders of magnitude more difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's incredibly difficult, and doing so will take time. And as for all the other impossible things Elon's done, they're not impossible. They're just sometimes not impossible in the time frame he says. And it's entirely possible that Starship will be replaced by something better, and that is what will go to Mars. My question is, when or if will other new factories be announced for worldwide consumption? UK? India? Australia? I just don't know, man. I just don't know. I think they've got to focus on getting these done. I think they need to determine how much available talent there is in each market. I think that's been the limiting factor in Nevada, is that it's just hard to get people to move to Reno to work in that factory. In terms of production, if there's a Model 2 or 1 that's significantly cheaper, I think that would be a fantastic one to build in Malaysia, maybe, where there's a lot of nickel, or Indonesia, or even Thailand. Thailand is getting very aggressive with their transition to electric vehicles. And for that matter, of course, India, in part because they've got such an incredible, robust workforce and ready supply of labor, but also because it is a big market and it's a developing market. And it could also work to export. Any of those could export to anywhere else in Southeast Asia or Europe. I hope they make a factory across the highway from Giga Texas that solely produces superchargers. This is needed and could support all of North and South America. Yeah, sure. There is a factory like that in Shanghai. We don't know how much production is coming out of there, but I would assume all of that is going to China and maybe other parts of Southeast Asia. But yeah. Aren't they being built in New York right now? Yeah, I don't know. The supercharger network seems to be doing well. It seems to be doing its job, but of course you could always use more. Oh, that was it. I made it through them. Fantastic. Well, guys, what did I miss or misunderstand? Leave me all your blinding brilliance in the comments below. And as always, my friends, stay tuned, stay juicy. And I simply cannot wait to hear from you clever robots with another round of really great questions. And those were really great questions. And a thank you.